AITA for not letting my roommate take my food anymore. She eats all the food, so I figured out how I would deal with it. I 22 female live with my roommate 23 female in a 2-bedroom apartment. We've been living together for just under a year now. At first, everything seemed fine. We got along well enough, similar schedules, both relatively clean, and we even had a few overlapping hobbies, so I genuinely thought it would be a good situation. But over time, I started noticing something off. I meal prep. Like, religiously. I work long hours and don't always have time to cook daily, so every Sunday I dedicate a few hours to planning and prepping my meals for the week. I spend money on fresh ingredients, make sure I'm hitting some nutritional balance, and honestly, I actually enjoy it. It's kind of therapeutic. I'll portion everything into labeled containers, stack them neatly in the fridge, and go about my week. At first, I didn't think much of it when a container or two went missing. I figured maybe I miscounted, or maybe I forgot I ate one earlier than planned. But then it started happening more frequently. I'd go to grab my lunch for work, gone. The dinner I had been looking forward to all day vanished. Snacks I bought for when I needed a little something between meals also mysteriously missing. I began to realize it wasn't just forgetfulness or misplacing things. Someone was eating my food. And there's only one other person living in the apartment. So I confronted her. I wasn't aggressive or rude, I just asked her if she'd taken my meals. She kind of brushed it off with this nonchalant attitude, saying things like, "Oh, I was hungry," or "I meant to replace it but I forgot," or even worse, "I figured it was no big deal." I told her it was, actually, kind of a big deal. I spend time, money, and effort making sure I have enough food for the week. Her taking it meant I had to either go hungry or spend more money I hadn't budgeted for. She promised she'd stop and that she'd replace anything she took. Spoiler alert, she never replaced anything. I tried to be accommodating. I started labeling my containers more explicitly like, "Do not eat, this belongs to me." That didn't stop her. I started hiding snacks in my room. She still helped herself to things in the fridge that were clearly mine. It felt like I was living with a toddler who had no concept of boundaries. Finally, after the last straw, which was her taking all of my prepped chicken for the week, I mean all of it, like 4 meals worth, I decided enough was enough. I went grocery shopping and intentionally only bought enough food for myself. I didn't get our usual, shared, household staples. No extra milk, no bread, no cereal, no pasta, nothing we usually both chipped in for. I just got what I needed for my meals, because I was tired of being the only one buying groceries and having them disappear without so much as a thank you. When I got back from the store, she was on the couch and saw me unloading my bags. She asked, all casual, "Oh, what did you get?" And I told her, just as casually, "Just some stuff for me." Her face changed. Instantly. She looked offended and kind of incredulous and asked, "Wow, you know I've been struggling with money and you can't even share a little?" I looked at her, trying to stay calm, and said, "I have been sharing. You just never ask. You just take. There's a difference." She didn't say much after that, just scoffed, rolled her eyes, and stormed off into her room. Since then, she's been acting super passive-aggressive. She slams cabinets. Leaves little messes around the apartment she knows will annoy me. She mutters things under her breath when she walks by me. And, the cherry on top, she told some of our mutual friends that I was being cold and selfish for not helping her out when she's going through a tough time financially. Now I've got people sliding into my DMs, mostly guys she's closer with, saying things like, "Come on, just cut her some slack, she's going through it," or, "You're not seriously letting her starve, are you?" One of them even said, if I were living with her, I'd help her out. Like, okay, then you live with her and foot her grocery bill, how about that? I don't want to be cruel. I understand struggling financially, I've been there. I'm not rich. I budget carefully and plan out my meals specifically so I don't waste money or have to order takeout. I've been more than generous, especially considering how often she's just taken things without permission or acknowledgement. If she had come to me and said, "Hey, I'm really short on cash this week, is it okay if I eat some of your food?" I would have said yes. But she never asked. She just helped herself, over and over again, then got defensive when I finally put my foot down. I didn't make a big dramatic deal out of it. I didn't yell. I didn't post about it publicly. I just decided to stop sharing with someone who clearly didn't respect boundaries. And now I'm the villain in her story, apparently. So yeah, now I feel kind of bad. Not because I think I did anything wrong, but because I hate being made out to be some heartless roommate when all I did was protect my own space, time, and money. But I'm also really, really annoyed. Because nobody seems to care that I was the one being taken advantage of. That I was coming home hungry to empty shelves I paid to fill. That I was made to feel like a bad person for setting a boundary after months of being walked all over. So tell me, am I the asshole? Update 1. Hi again. So, I didn't think I'd be back here with another update, but here we are, because apparently when I think the situation has hit rock bottom, Ashley shows up with a shovel. After I made my initial post and got it all off my chest, I felt a little lighter. I kept everything separate, exactly like I said I would. My groceries, my leftovers, even my sauces and condiments were moved to my own designated shelf in the fridge and pantry. Everything was labeled clearly, down to my bottle of soy sauce and my jar of peanut butter. I thought maybe, after being called out, after the passive-aggressive tension, after being called selfish by our mutuals, she would finally get the message and respect my boundaries. But no. She didn't. Within days, I started noticing things missing again. Not whole meals this time, but little things, which felt even more infuriating in a way. A protein bar gone here, a yogurt missing there. Then I noticed that some of my leftovers had clearly been tampered with. One night, I'd packed up this lemon garlic salmon I had made, which was not cheap to prepare, with roasted potatoes and asparagus. I had portioned it out into 2 meals, and when I went to grab one for dinner, it had clearly been scraped into and rearranged to look untouched. The audacity. I confronted her again, but she swore up and down she hadn't touched anything. Same old lines. She was gaslighting me at this point, and I knew it. So I decided if she wasn't going to learn from being told no, if being reasonable and polite and firm didn't work, I would get a little creative. I'm not proud of it. I don't think this makes me a saint. But I was done being walked on. So I made a small batch of brownies for myself, nothing extravagant, just a little treat to get me through the end of a stressful week. I cooked them perfectly, cut them into neat squares, and put them in a container labeled clearly with my name. I placed them squarely in the center of my shelf, knowing full well what would happen. Here's the thing, I had added a very gentle but effective amount of over-the-counter laxatives. Not dangerous. Nothing extreme. Just enough to serve as a physical reminder that taking food that doesn't belong to you can have consequences. The package even had clear instructions on dosage, and I stayed well below anything excessive. These weren't weaponized brownies, they were, in every sense of the word, a warning. The next morning, I woke up to find half the brownies gone. I wasn't surprised. Later that day, I heard the bathroom door open and close more times than I could count. Ashley was shuffling between her room and the bathroom like she was trapped in a hellish loop. She complained loudly and constantly about how her stomach was killing her, how she didn't know what she had eaten to deserve this, how she hadn't even gone out the night before. I kept my face neutral. I kept my voice calm. I didn't gloat. But I did tell her, later that night while she was curled on the couch looking miserable, that it might be a good idea to ask before eating food that isn't hers, especially when she doesn't know what's in it. She went pale. Her eyes got wide. I could see the moment she put it all together. Her jaw clenched, her whole body stiffened, and then came the outburst. She accused me of trying to poison her, called me insane, said I was evil and vindictive and that I had gone too far. I told her, very plainly, that it was an over-the-counter laxative at a safe, appropriate dosage, and that it was in food clearly labeled as mine. I told her if she had asked before taking it, I would have told her not to eat it. But she didn't ask. Because she never asks. She stormed off to her room and slammed the door, which has basically become her go-to dramatic exit strategy at this point. I could hear her pacing, talking to someone on the phone, probably ranting about me and how awful I am. But the thing is, she looked embarrassed. Not just angry, humiliated. Like for the first time, she realized there were actual consequences to her actions that she couldn't control, twist, or manipulate. And for a week, an entire week, she didn't touch a single thing of mine. Not a snack, not a sip of juice, not a spoonful of leftovers. She kept to her side of the fridge, started writing her own name on her stuff, and even went grocery shopping on her own. For a whole 7 days, it was like living with an entirely different person. Passive-aggressive silence. Yes. Glares and muttering. Absolutely. But touching my food? Not once. She called me evil, but she stopped touching my stuff. For a week. Update 2. I genuinely wish I was here with something boring like a resolution, or at least a calm fade-out. But no. The situation escalated. Because of course it did. So, Ashley has this new boyfriend now. Let's call him Tyler. The name should already tell you everything, but just for context, he's one of the guys who messaged me back when everything initially blew up. After I confronted Ashley the first time and she started spreading her version of events through our shared social circles, a few of our mutuals started to weigh in, unsolicited, through DMs and texts. Tyler was one of them. He sent this very condescending message about how I was being cold, inconsiderate, and how I should just cut her some slack, because she was clearly going through a rough time. I remember reading it with this hollow sense of disbelief, because he spoke with such certainty, as if he knew every detail, as if he'd lived in the apartment and seen the whole situation unfold. He didn't. He knew her version of things. The one where I was this greedy, spiteful roommate stockpiling food while she tiptoed around with her empty stomach and her broken heart, too timid and downtrodden to ask for anything. The kind of pitiful fable that garners sympathy when you leave out every single part about theft and entitlement. I ignored him then because, frankly, I had bigger things to deal with. But it didn't surprise me to find out later that he was the new boyfriend. It kind of felt inevitable. The guy who had already taken her side without knowing anything was now fully folded into her life, sitting right in the middle of my space, like it was his. He had already played the night in text form, now he had his feet up in my kitchen. Last Thursday was the boiling point. I'd had one of those days where you can practically feel your blood pressure rising with every passing hour. I'd planned ahead for it. I had a full meal waiting for me at home. My go-to comfort food when I've had a rough day is this chicken stir-fry I make with jasmine rice, colorful sautéed veggies, and a homemade soy ginger sauce. I'd prepped 3 portions of it on Sunday. Labeled, dated, and stacked neatly on my shelf in the fridge. I had one left, and it was meant to be dinner that night. I walked into the apartment and immediately felt off. The kind of quiet that isn't peaceful, just wrong. I turned the corner into the kitchen, and there they were. Ashley and Tyler, standing side by side at the counter, laughing about something, casually eating like they were in their own personal bistro. My containers were open in front of them, the stir-fry scooped onto plates, half of it already gone. My name was still written on the lids, which were sitting off to the side like discarded evidence. It was surreal. Like I'd stepped into someone else's life. They didn't stop when they saw me. They barely even flinched. Tyler looked up, completely unfazed, and just kept eating, asking Ashley something about the sauce, as if I wasn't standing there watching my carefully planned meals being devoured by someone who didn't live there, who had never contributed so much as $1 to the grocery bill. The whole thing felt like a power move, like he knew he was crossing a line but wanted to see if I'd actually call him on it. I stood there, stunned, and when I finally asked what they were doing, Tyler gave me this look, this slow, lazy, smug expression that made my skin crawl, and said, "Relax, it's just food." Just food. The words hit like a slap. The complete dismissal of my time, my effort, my money. Like I was a lunatic for caring about something that had been repeatedly stolen from me. I told him to leave. No anger, no yelling, no bargaining, just a cold, clear order to get out of my space. He paused, like he was sizing me up, then glanced at Ashley with this look that said, "She's joking, right?" She wasn't. I wasn't. I told Ashley that this was the last time. There would be no more explanations, no more understanding. The line had been crossed for the final time. He finally left, dragging his feet like it was beneath him to be asked to go. As he walked out, he mumbled something I couldn't quite catch, but the tone was unmistakably derisive, like I was the one creating drama. Ashley said nothing. Not a word. She rolled her eyes and retreated to her room like she was annoyed to have her evening interrupted. Like I had been the inconvenience in a situation where they had raided my food like raccoons in a pantry. The next day, I bought a mini fridge. Not one of those flimsy little dorm fridges either, a solid, mid-sized one that could hold a full week of groceries, plus snacks and drinks. It was an investment, but at that point, I would have paid twice the price for a sliver of peace. I brought it in, unpacked it, hauled it into my room alone, and set it up against the wall by my desk. I moved everything over. All my food, prepped meals, fruits, sauces, the little luxuries like oat milk and almond butter, all of it went into that fridge. And then I locked it. A password-protected strap around the handle, tightened like a seatbelt. And then, just in case, I took it one step further. I installed a motion sensor camera just inside my bedroom door, positioned to face the hallway. It's small, subtle, and doesn't run all the time, just when it detects movement. I didn't want to live like I was in a spy thriller, but after everything, I needed to know that if Ashley crossed into my space, I would have actual proof. No more guessing. No more confronting her only to be met with blank stares and denial. Just the cold clarity of video footage. Was it over the top? Maybe from the outside, it would seem like it. But unless you've spent weeks watching your things disappear, confronting someone who lies straight to your face, and being made to feel like the crazy one for caring, you wouldn't understand. People throw the word dramatic around like it means something. But I wasn't being dramatic. I was surviving. And I was done being taken advantage of. A few hours after everything was settled, I got a message from Tyler. He said he wanted to apologize. At first, I hesitated. I thought maybe he'd had some time to think things over and realized he had overstepped. But of course, that wasn't what it was. His message was a classic non-apology. He said he was sorry if I felt disrespected, not that he had disrespected me, just that I'd apparently interpreted things poorly. Then he added that I really should have just shared, because we're all trying to help each other out right now. Help. From where I stood, all he'd done was eat food he hadn't paid for, defend a grown woman's chronic boundary stomping, and act smug about it. I blocked him without responding. And then Ashley's attitude shifted again. If before she was quietly bitter, now she was leaning all the way into the performance. She stopped talking to me entirely, which, honestly, was the most peaceful it had been in weeks. But instead of letting it go, she started expressing herself in the form of passive-aggressive notes. Not texts, not confrontations, sticky notes. Dozens of them. She plastered them around the kitchen. Notes on the fridge, on the cabinet doors, on the inside of the pantry. None of them were addressed to me by name, but it wasn't hard to figure out who the target was. One read, "Community life requires community effort." Another said, "It costs nothing to be kind, and to share." She stuck one right in the center of the shared fridge door that said, "Shared spaces should not breed selfishness." But the one that really got me, the one that made me stop and laugh because it was so wildly out of touch, said, "Community life is a shared meal." Ashley's sulking got worse after she even started leaving passive-aggressive notes on the fridge like "Community life is a shared meal." Update 3. This is probably the last update I'll ever have to give, because, well, Ashley's out. Not because I forced her to leave or created some dramatic eviction scenario. Our lease was already set to expire at the end of the month. We were just a few days out, both of us silently counting down to the day we wouldn't have to share a hallway or hear the other person breathing anymore. I figured we'd just endure the awkward silence and unspoken tension until the finish line. But Ashley being Ashley, she couldn't resist one last act of pure audacity on her way out. It happened on a Tuesday. I was at work, same routine as always, and I got a ping from my phone. Motion alert. The little camera I'd set up inside my bedroom wasn't overly sensitive. I'd fine-tuned the settings so it didn't go off for every flicker of light or shifting shadow. So when it notified me, I knew something was happening. I opened the live feed, thinking it might be a false alarm or a minor thing like the curtain moving from the fan. But no. There she was. Ashley. Inside my room. The footage was crystal clear. Not blurry, not distorted, she was right there in the frame, standing in front of my mini fridge, bent slightly, holding a package of my deli meat like she was weighing whether to take the whole thing or just a few slices. She was moving quickly, but not fast enough to suggest panic. It was the pace of someone who thought they had enough time to get in and out unnoticed. Her face was visible the entire time. And here's the kicker, my bedroom door had been locked that morning when I left. She picked it. Poorly, apparently, because I saw the slight damage around the latch the moment I got home. But she had done it. She broke into my private space. Not the shared fridge. Not a gray area. My locked bedroom. My groceries. My property. That was it for me. I didn't even bother confronting her this time. No more hallway arguments, no more cold shoulder standoffs in the kitchen. I took the footage straight to our landlord. I emailed it with a simple explanation. Ashley had entered my locked room without permission, and I had proof. I didn't embellish or dramatize it. I just let the footage speak for itself. And it did. Turns out, breaking and entering, even in a shared rental, is considered a serious lease violation. The landlord didn't hesitate. Ashley was issued a formal notice within the day, 7 days to vacate the property. She didn't even fight it. She packed her things and left in 5. No warning, no goodbye, no last confrontation. Just, gone. The last I saw of her was her back disappearing down the hallway with a box of clothes and Tyler trailing behind her like a confused golden retriever. I thought that would be the end of it. And for me, it was. But word travels fast in shared friend circles, and I started hearing things, little updates trickling through mutual acquaintances who were far too eager to share. Ashley moved in with her cousin across town. Apparently, she had spun the story again, telling everyone that I'd kicked her out unfairly, that I'd spied on her, that I was paranoid and controlling. But people talk. And her cousin? She's no pushover. I don't know her personally, but from what I've heard, it's already not going well. Apparently, Ashley's been trying to borrow food again, only this time with someone who isn't afraid to call her out directly and loudly. One mutual even told me there was a blow-up over almond milk and a half-eaten rotisserie chicken. So, same script, different setting. Meanwhile, I'm thriving. That sounds a bit cheesy to say, but it's true. I didn't realize how much of my energy had been going into managing that constant stress until it was gone. Like suddenly the apartment felt mine again. I could open the fridge and find exactly what I left there. I could plan meals without wondering if they'd still be waiting for me when I got home. There were no weird notes taped to appliances, no strangers using my dishes, no background hum of resentment when I walked in the door. About a week after Ashley left, I got a new roommate. Her name's Sarah. She's a nurse who works nights, which means our schedules rarely overlap. She's quiet, clean, and respectful. We had a simple conversation about shared versus personal items, set clear boundaries, and that was that. No drama. No games. She even bought her own set of Tupperware and labeled her shelf in the fridge without me asking. And she has never once touched anything that wasn't hers. Life is peaceful now. That's the word I keep coming back to. Peaceful. No stolen chicken. No disappearing leftovers. No mystery bites out of protein bars or empty cereal boxes shoved to the back of the pantry. Just silence, space, and the satisfaction of knowing that everything I worked for, every cent I spent on groceries, every hour spent meal prepping, belongs to me, and me alone. I don't know what Ashley tells people now. I'm sure in her version of the story, I'm still the villain, still the cold-hearted roommate who wouldn't share and took things too seriously. But I've stopped caring. People can believe what they want. The truth is, I didn't lose sleep over standing up for myself. I gained it. So yeah. Final verdict. Not the asshole. Just someone who finally stood up for herself and got her fridge and peace back.